Are you passionate about keeping kids safe and informed? Emily's Hope is proud to introduce our K through 5 substance use prevention curriculum, designed to educate young minds about the dangers of substance use. This engaging program lays the foundation for a healthy future. Visit emilyshopeedu.org to learn more and help bring this vital resource to your local schools. Encourage your school administrators and counselors to explore our curriculum today. It's part of our mission. Together, we can make a difference.
He secured the LLC on his own. He launched the website on his own. He hired his friends to be the models.
At just 19 years old, Jack Nathan seemed to have an exciting and successful future ahead. He started his own apparel company and even donated some of the proceeds to an organization that helps children struggling with their mental health.
Jack was fearless. That's how he lived his life. He just never believed anything would happen to him.
Unfortunately, his decision to take one pill would change his and his family's life forever.
And his last text to me was, "I love you more than life," which was very not unusual for Jack to write. And the next morning, I text him. I figured he's still sleeping. I text him again. And I don't even know how much later I got a phone call from Jack's dad, who had learned that Jack never woke up.
I'm Angela Kennecke, and you're listening to Grieving Out Loud. Thanks for joining us as we talk about some of the major topics facing today's youth, the mental health crisis, the fentanyl epidemic, and how parents can navigate these challenges. Brady, thank you so much for joining me on Grieving Out Loud. It's just a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here.
I'm saddened by the reason that you're here, why so many of my guests join me, because they've been through the loss of a child to fentanyl, just like me, or to some other substance. But I'm very sorry for the loss of your son, Jack.
Thank you. And my sympathies go out to you and to this group that none of us wanted to be a part of.
Right. Right. And your Jack was just 19 years old.
19, he was just shy of his 20th birthday. He had come home from college because of COVID, and we tragically lost him on July 3rd of 2020.
Right before the 4th of July. So can you talk to me a little bit about Jack? Because I think it's so interesting what he had already accomplished in his short life.
Sure. So Jack struggled with both anxiety and depression. And as a way to relieve that anxiety, he would often, retreat to the basement and blast Mac Miller, and he would paint. He would take himself to Michael's, buy canvases, and just paint for hours on end. And he told me it was the one place that he found peace.
When Jack started college, he continued to paint, now in the basement of his fraternity house. But he also came up with an idea to turn his passion into a business, all while helping others who struggle with mental health.
He had the idea to parlay his love of painting and his love of art into a way to help others who felt the way my son did, in terms of Jack was very transparent about his anxiety and about his depression. So he started heat pressing his designs onto apparel from his room in the fraternity house, and he aptly named his brand Happy Jack. And he started selling those images, and they were so well received by his friends and just the concept as a whole. And so many kids identified with Jack and his struggles. And I do believe that it was quite unusual for someone at the age of 19 to be so forthcoming about his struggles. And he almost sort of wore it like a badge of honor. He just wanted to lead this charge. He called it for the misunderstood. He just wanted other kids to know that they were not alone and they were not, this anomaly. And He literally sent out a text on June 7th, and he said, if you're getting this text, you've been a part of my life. And I've been building this company or brands around my struggles with mental illness. And a portion of every sale is going to go to the Child Mind Institute, which was his chosen foundation at the time that he researched and found himself. And after the first week of sales, he donated $1,000. And I was so incredibly proud of what he did on his own. And he didn't want any help from me, any help from his father. And, he secured the LLC on his own. He launched the website on his own. He hired his friends to be the models. He got the photographers and did the photo shoots. I mean, everything that went into this, he did on his own.
That's incredible for somebody who's just 19, and he had a philanthropic heart as well.
Yes. He said to me, Mom, if I could help one person to not feel the way I do, it will have all been worth it. And I said, well, there you go.
Despite Jack's success, he continued to battle anxiety and depression. Brady says she first learned about her son's mental health struggles when he was a sophomore in high school.
I could picture what he's wearing. I remember him sitting on my countertop in my kitchen, and I remember him telling me he wasn't happy. And as a parent, you look to the tangible first, right? You say like, well, why isn't my child happy? What doesn't he have? He has a plethora of friends, 2 loving parents, et cetera, et cetera. And when you realize that it is not attached to anything tangible, I understood the concept of depression, but it takes a minute. It takes a while to stop looking outside and understand that you have to look within to find that happiness.
After her son opened up about what he was dealing with, Brady sought to help him right away through a therapist.
He thought there was a stigma attached, but then when he realized some of his friends actually were going to therapy but just not talking about it, he embraced it a little bit. And he began to really like therapy. But therapy can only help so much. And it, as you know, is heartbreaking as a parent to see your child in pain and to want to be able to do everything and anything you can to take that pain away.
Despite seeing a therapist, Jack continued to struggle. Weeks before his death, he started taking medication for depression.
Eventually, he said, I can't handle it anymore. I can't do this myself. And we got him on medication. And if you know that it takes a while to kick in, right? And you have to use it consecutively, and then you slowly up the dosage. And he has to be responsible for taking his medication, once a day. And I believe that it started to help. However, I don't think he was on it long enough to see any long-term effects. And if I'm being honest with myself, I don't know that he was even taking it consistently, I should say.
Alongside his mental health struggles, Brady knew her son had experimented with marijuana. Yet what happened on July 2nd of 2020 still seems unimaginable.
He decided he was going to go to a 21st birthday party. I wasn't that familiar with this group of friends that he had. He typically hung out with friends he grew up with. And it was about 45 minutes from my house. And he texted me at midnight and he said, really not safe to drive home. I'm going to stay the night. And his last text to me was, I love you more than life, which was very not unusual for Jack to write. And the next morning, I text him. I figured he's still sleeping. I text him again. And I don't even know how much later I got a phone call from Jack's dad, who had learned that Jack never woke up.
You think he's making a smart choice by not driving, right? If he had gone to a birthday party and
Yes.
drinking had probably been involved. And
What's so crazy is that when they did the autopsy, he had no alcohol in his system, which I was really shocked. I mean, we didn't know. I knew one boy he was with who had said that he believed that he had taken a Percocet. And I remember thinking at the time, well, Percocet is not causing you to not wake up in the morning. I wasn't as familiar with fentanyl as I am today. Obviously, 4 years ago, we didn't know about it. We didn't talk about it like we do today. So it didn't even occur to me that that Percocet that he ingested that night might have been laced with fentanyl. It didn't even occur to me.
So then how long did you have to wait to find out what killed him?
I couldn't even tell you the exact time frame because I'm sure like you, a lot of it is a blur. But it didn't take too long to realize that that one pill was laced with fentanyl, and that's ultimately how he passed. I still can't wrap my head around it.
Right. It's almost impossible to accept, right? That he goes to a party, takes a pill, and dies.
It is impossible to wrap your head around the fact that something as small as a few grains of sand can end someone's life. And I'm looking back. I don't know if you had Emily's phone, but you're like, well, had he not done this and he had gone there and he had had that plan, he wouldn't have been in. Obviously, I don't know if any of that would have changed the trajectory of his life, but
Can I say something? Can I just interject for a minute? There's one great thing that has helped me in some grief training that I've taken recently. And instead of second guessing and saying, if only they hadn't done that, if only say, even if, this happened, this still could have
yeah,
happened. Even if, I would have done this, or even if they did this thing, it still could have
yes,
happened. Right.
yes,
So I think that's something really, we all do that, I
yeah,
think, as parents. Our brains so badly want to restructure or rewrite the story,
wouldn't
right?
that be nice?
We want to make sense of something that's so
Yes,
senseless.
yes, yes, yes.
Right. And was anyone charged in his death?
No one was charged.
Why?
We still today don't know where he got it from.
Somebody knows. Somebody
Somebody
knows.
knows. I didn't have the strength. I didn't get out of bed for almost 6 months. I didn't
I
the
get it.
strength or the bandwidth to even go that route.
Well, it shouldn't be up to you, quite frankly. It should be up to law enforcement and investigators to track down these cases.
And I suppose I came to the realization that it wasn't going to bring my son back. And I wanted to remember God
Right.
for how he lived his life and not necessarily how he left us.
Right. I get that. And I will say that in the case of Emily, we know where the drug came from. We know who it came from. Several people associated with her death went to prison, but it didn't make me feel any
Right.
better. Do you know what I mean? It didn't make the pain go away. I was glad that those people were, especially the higher level dealers that were bringing it from Chicago into my town, who killed many people who did not use their own product.
Yeah.
I was glad those people were put away because then they couldn't do it to other people, right? But it seems like then another person pops up in their place. Like it's just like whack-a-mole,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot of parents out there really angry that they didn't get justice, but sometimes it's not stopping this problem.
It's not stopping this problem. And I haven't heard many parents say this, if any, that Jack has to take some responsibility for what he did. And I'm his mother, and
Yeah.
I recognize no one put a gun to his head that night and made him take that pill. I don't know if I would have told him 10 times, 20 times more, be careful, be careful. No one worried. It was a full-time job for me worrying about Jack. And he's always told me I worry too much. And for just reason, Jack was fearless. That's how he lived his life. He just never believed anything would happen to him.
In my daughter's case, she was struggling from substance use disorder. And I always say, she made a decision to use, obviously, the day that she died. But she didn't make a decision to die. She didn't choose to die. It wasn't like she was trying to die, nor was Jack.
Right.
So that is a different, yes, all of us hold some personal accountability, right? Like the first time my daughter used or the few times she used, and then I know she was suffering from substance use disorder. There's some personal accountability there, but yet when we were growing up, if someone was engaging in risky behavior, there wasn't a death
No,
sentence, right? So it's really changed.
no,
I get what you're saying about personal accountability, but yet there's this deadly substance in everything, and people don't know they're getting it.
correct.
Or at least our kids didn't.
I mean, it's almost been 4 years and I heard of it, but not like, you have a 70% chance of not waking up if you take an illicit pill. I mean,
Right.
the numbers weren't out there like they are today. If he had said to Jack, here's your decision to when you take a pill, you think to yourself, I have a 70% chance of not waking up in the morning.
Right. Well, you didn't know. And you can't know what you didn't know. That's just the way it goes. But you mentioned, that basically you were in bed for like 6 months, like you couldn't really
No,
function.
I was tired. I was emotionally tired, too tired to eat, too tired to socialize, too tired to carry on a conversation, too tired to even go through even the process, which I have to hand it to Jack's father, who handled all of the logistics that go into planning one funeral. And I did not, when I tell you nothing, nothing. And it took every ounce of me just to even get me to the synagogue that day to hear the rabbi speak. I didn't go to Shiva. I didn't go to his unveiling. It took me 2 years to get to the cemetery. And I know everyone grieves differently. And for me personally, I become completely exhausted.
And your grief is your grief. I mean, it is. And no one should define for you what that means or what you should do or not do. But my heart aches for you thinking of how devastated and sad, because I know that devastation and sadness. I know that
Mm.
tiredness. What eventually got you to get going and get back into life again?
Happy Jack. He had launched a business that I knew I had to continue. I wanted to honor his legacy and his memory, and his friends all rallied around Happy Jack and picked up the slack when I couldn't. And Jack's father and I, finally took the reins, and it gave me a reason to wake up in the morning. And obviously my daughter, who's now 20, I promised her that I wouldn't go numb. And it's for her and for Happy Jack. That's where my strength came from. And I'm grateful to my son that he left us that gift.
And so you continue to sell his artwork on merchandise. What else are you doing?
Jack had these little touches that he would add. Every package he took a fat Sharpie and he drew a smiley. So some days I would just sit with huge envelopes and just draw smileys, and hours would go by. But you know what? I felt more connected to him. I felt like I was doing something. I was going back and forth to the post office, mailing out packages and sourcing and meeting with the manufacturer, meeting with the embroiderers.
Brady says that Happy Jack has not only helped her in the grieving process, but the company has grown and now supports even more nonprofits focused on mental health and substance use disorder.
We continued with the Child Mind Institute and eventually branched off to be able to raise enough money to donate to Active Minds, Born This Way Foundation, NAMI, Wrong for Charlie, Release Recovery, and a bunch more. But it warms my heart that we are able to continue what he started in the way that he wanted it to go.
I have to say, that is beautiful. It is a beautiful story. I mean, sad, bittersweet, obviously.
Yeah.
But I love that what he started gave you your purpose again in life. And how are you doing today?
I'm still tired.
Yeah. Grief has a way of sticking around. I think it will forever, quite frankly.
I nap.
Yeah.
I'm tired and I nap. I'm not as social as I used to be. I have trouble in social situations where I know a lot of people because I feel like I have that like scarlet letter. Oh, there's the woman who lost
I get it.
child. And then, you know how people look at you and they're like, oh,
That face.
I don't want to be that person. I am that person. I
I
don't want to
know.
be that
Look,
person.
this was not a choice that you or I made for our stories, right? For our family stories, for our stories. Yeah, I get it.
You're in the public eye, so I don't know how much of a choice that you have.
I didn't have a choice. I had a lot of anxiety initially, going back out into public, and I knew that people were gonna ask me about my daughter. Well, it is a big, huge part of my identity now, but I accept it
Hmm.
that this is my story now, our story. But it's none I would ever choose,
Of
of
course.
course. Neither would you. But I love that really, I mean, the fact that Jack started this before he died and you're carrying it
Mhm.
on is just such a powerful thing. And your daughter, you mentioned she would have been 16 when he died. And my kids were also in high school, like 16, 17. And I think it really, this horrible thing that happens in a family, I always say it's like a bomb going off in your family, you know,
Mhm.
it affects everybody. So how has it affected her?
Mostly, and I found this really interesting, is that as she started to sort of ease herself back into life and going back to school and sports, she began to say, she didn't necessarily want to be a part of Happy Jack. It was too much for her. It's too overwhelming. When we did a pop-up shop, she
Yeah.
came, a handful of times, whereas we were there every single day. And she later said to me, she was able to articulate why. And she said, I don't want to be known as Happy Jack's sister.
And she wants her own
Correct.
identity.
She said, I want to be Miss Drew. And she said, I just want to be Drew. And it's no different, right? I don't want to be that mom. And she
Right.
didn't want to be that girl. And it's been almost 4 years and she's been involved, but not as involved as I thought she would have been. But I totally understand it. And we have never pressured her. We have never asked her to do anything that she wouldn't willingly want to do. And you know what? She's right. She deserves her own identity. She deserves her own story. And, right now she's studying abroad in Australia. And I'm so incredibly proud of her. I'm not huge for anyone, but to go, after a loss, it hasn't been that long. But, what's amazing is she's done things that she knew her brother wanted to do. She went skydiving,
Oh,
and I don't think that's something she ever would have done if she knew that was something Jack wanted to do.
that's cool. That's her way to pay
Yeah.
tribute to him, is to do some things. Yeah, and I think each of us has to find our own way, right? Even our children. I have one daughter who moved to a different city and now lives in a different city. And I think that's good for her. There's some distance. She's not always identified as Emily's sister, right? She has her own
Mhm.
identity, but yet she does things to help the charity. She's an animator illustrator. So she's helped with our education curriculum in her own way. She does things, but it's her
Yeah.
way. My other kids do different things. So each one is different in how they've approached this and what they've wanted to
Mhm.
do, what they've not wanted to do, and how it has impacted their identity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that he was an artist because my daughter also was an artist and a painter.
Yeah.
And she left us with 29 paintings, and we use her art now in the charity of Emily's Hope. And I know Jack really continues to live on through his art as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yes, he does. And, like you look at those paintings, right? And you're like, Emily actually held that paintbrush and touched that, and I sometimes put my hands to the paintings themselves and I imagine him holding that paintbrush and striking that brushstroke. And I want to ask him so many questions about his artwork now.
I know. It was a tangible thing they left us. And I always say, I wish I would have gone into more deep
Yeah.
discussions with Emily about each piece. I know a little bit about some pieces, right? But I mean, if I would have obviously known that I wouldn't have her, I would have done
Yeah.
that. But kudos to you for doing all that you do. Where would you like to take Happy Jack from here? Do you know?
I don't. I'd be lying if I said I did. I try and do one day at a time because any more than that is overwhelming to me. Not unlike Jack, I would say my biggest obstacle or the thing that I wrestle with the most is looking at Happy Jack saying, and I constantly say to myself, well, would he have done this? Would he like this? Would he have partnered with this fund? Would he? And it's a constant question and I ruminate over it. And someone said to me point blankly, "You're not Jack. Stop trying to emulate him. You're not 19. You're, a 53-year-old woman who could have a voice now." So I started, speaking on TikTok and sharing a different conversation from a different perspective than the one, he started on Instagram. But I'd like to continue the company. I'd like to be able to continue to give back and, for everyone to recognize our story and save some lives. But right now, it's really one day at a time.
I think that's smart. I think all of us should really live that way, one day at a time. And I agree, it's nice to keep in mind what Jack would have liked, but also sometimes you do have to make a decision, right, as yourself. And this is the way that you should go for you, because he will always, in a way, be with you.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that.
Yeah, I really believe that with my daughter, that
Oh, yeah.
she's with me. It's just, of course, not in the way we really want them with us as physically and all of that.
I know this sounds crazy, but I often think how crowded it must be upstairs with all of our kids. And I just can't even conceive how many of them or how many of us there are. And I try my hardest to envision all of our kids. Sorry, I get emotional, but as you know, all of them together. And I'm not saying I wish people would join him, but it gives me comfort to know that he can be with Emily and he can be with other kids.
I'm going to send you a link to the podcast I did with a woman named Debbie, who is a caricature artist. And she got as many pictures of kids that has happened and drew them all together in heaven, having a great time. If you'd like to listen to the episode titled Grieving Mother Copes by Drawing Caricatures of Those Lost in the Fentanyl Epidemic, just check out the show notes in this podcast. While you're there, we would appreciate it if you could rate and review this episode. It truly helps us further our mission to raise awareness about the fentanyl epidemic that has taken far too many lives. Here's a segment of our conversation with Debbie Evans, the caricature artist.
I draw pictures of Jamie.
And who are his angel friends?
Oh, no, he's got like 2,000.
And when I met you, we had never met before. And you saw a picture of my daughter and you said what?
That I know her. She's in my pictures. A lot of moms ask me, request, can my child be on your picture? And then there's some that I just see them and something touches me. And she was so beautiful.
So beautiful. Yeah.
I just thought, yeah, she'd been in all of them since I saw her.
So you draw these pictures and they're very well done. It's not just a little picture. They're huge. And what's happening in the pictures?
Like Jamie's birthday party.
His birthday in heaven.
Yes, birthday in heaven.
Because he would have been 37, is that right? From fun birthday parties to Jamie's favorite bacon cheeseburger feasts, Debbie's artwork covers a wide range of scenes. In these drawings, she captures her son doing the things he enjoyed most, surrounded by others who lost their lives to fentanyl. Some of these pieces even have more than 2,000 faces in them. Emily was an artist. Maybe that's why she resonated with you, because she was an artist.
Aww.
And you have, so there you got bacon cheeseburgers and hockey and people doing all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And does this help you?
Yes.
How?
It just gives me something to do for Jamie.
Yeah, they're not alone. And we're not alone because we do have each other. And I'm sorry that we're part of this club, but we still have each other.
We do.
And I think our voices are important. So thank you for speaking out. Thank you for carrying on.
Thank you for everything you do. I'm so grateful for what you do. I think to myself, I don't know if I have that strength.
Well, you might surprise yourself down the road. You might end up doing more than even what you're doing now. But what you're doing now is plenty.
Yeah, about all I can handle. So like I said, today I'm okay. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Grieving Out Loud. We hope you found it helpful as we navigate the addiction, mental health, and fentanyl crisis together. By sharing these stories, we hope to prevent other families from going through devastating losses. Thanks again. Until next time, wishing you faith, hope, and courage. This podcast is produced by Casey Wonnenberg King.